Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Next Monday we'll be commemorating Holocaust Memorial Day. It's a time for us all to reflect on the horrors of the past and remind us of the evils of Nazism, genocide, anti-Semitism and indeed all forms of racism, which we must always all be implacably determined to root out wherever it appears. And this Saturday, Mr. Speaker, hundreds of millions of people will be celebrating Chinese New Year around the world. And I'm sure the Prime Minister will join me in welcoming the Year of the Rat and invite all Chinese people to have a great time. Mr. Speaker, if a worker earning just over £12,500 a year receives a £300 bonus, how much of that bonus does the Prime Minister think that worker should be allowed to keep?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, let me join the right honourable gentleman in what he said about the importance of Holocaust Memorial Day and, of course, in stamping out anti-Semitism and resurgence of anti-Semitism in our country. And on his point about the low paid, I think perhaps the best answer I can give to him is to remind him that just this week this government increased the living wage by the biggest ever amount, so that people on the living wage will be receiving an extra £1,000 a year. And if he wants a further elucidation on his point, perhaps he could answer a better question.
Mr. Speaker, Greggs are currently giving 25,000 workers a £300 bonus. But some of those workers on universal credit will only be allowed to keep £75 out of that £300. And if the Prime Minister can answer that question and show me that's just and fair, I'll buy him a vegan roll from Greggs myself. But the first aim of universal credit, which is set to affect 6 million people, was to make work pay. But when low-paid workers can't even keep their own bonuses, it's clear the government is punishing, not supporting people. Will the Prime Minister do something to ensure that workers at companies like Greggs on low pay will be allowed to keep their bonuses?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, under this government, people on low pay will be able to keep more of the money that they earn. And it is this government that is cutting national insurance contributions for everybody in the country. It is this government that is increasing the living wage, and it was the right honourable gentleman who voted against tax cuts for the low paid to the tune of £7,800.
The Prime Minister himself fought with unbelievable levels of energy to protect the bankers' bonus. Why can't he do something about the low-paid on very low wages who need to be allowed to keep the bonus they've got? The Resolution Foundation report published yesterday highlighted serious distress caused by the dysfunctional nature of the universal credit system. One claimant says, sometimes you're starving, another said it was horrendous, and another said, it's very hard for me because I'm not very good at computers. Does the Prime Minister think that universal credit is meeting its second aim of making the social security system simpler?
Prime Minister.
Yes, indeed, Mr. Speaker, we are making the social security system simpler because we have massively reduced unemployment. And I can tell him on his specific point about Greggs. As far as I understand the situation, Greggs is producing record figures, £7 million extra. One person, I believe, has complained about the bonus system that he remarks upon, but it is in the context of unparalleled growth in employment. 359,000 more jobs in this country this year than last year, and the IMF now confirming that the UK economy will grow faster than the rest of the Eurozone. When is he going to stop talking Britain down and start recognising the extraordinary achievements of the UK economy?
The real issue is, Mr. Speaker, that many people in work are also in poverty and have to access universal credit. Almost 1 million on 0 hours contracts and actually more people rough sleeping than ever before. Those are the issues that ought to be concerning the Prime Minister. The third aim of universal credit, it was claimed, was to reduce poverty, but we know it's having the opposite effect. Under this government, 65 million meals were handed out by the Trussell food banks over the last 5 years. The 5-week delay for new claimants is leaving people without enough money to cover basic needs. Why isn't the Prime Minister taking action to end this punitive and vicious 5-week wait for benefits?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, universal credit has in fact succeeded in getting 200,000 people into jobs, and contrary to what he says, the number of people in poverty has diminished by 400,000 under this government. Contrary to what he says, wages have been increasing solidly for the last 22 months, and Labour is supposed to have had a period of reflection, Mr. Speaker, since the last election. They're supposed to have been reflecting on the results of the last general election. They've decided, as far as I understand it, that what they want is even more Corbynism, Mr. Speaker. A four-day week, increases in taxes on working people, uncontrolled immigration from everywhere. I refer the right honourable gentleman to the answer the British people gave to him 4 weeks ago.
Jermey Corbyn.
Wouldn't it be truly wonderful if the Prime Minister answered a question about universal credit? He's dodged every question on it. The reality is that about half of the people going on to universal credit are worse off as a result of it. And the same is true of the very cruel and callous 2-child limit under universal credit, which caps benefits for larger families. There are 500,000 more children living in poverty than there were in 2010, and the number of children in deprivation has soared in the last few years. Why won't the Prime Minister just have the guts to admit that there is a link between poverty and the 2-child limit?
Mr. Speaker, the right honourable gentleman can't accuse me of failing to answer the question when I answered the question very clearly a couple of times. There are 400,000 fewer people in poverty. There's been a reduction, substantial reduction in child poverty. He doesn't like the answers. The reality is that there is a massive increase in employment. There is growth in this economy. And let me tell you, Mr. Speaker, I really think that it is time the Labour Party changed their tune. I've got some good news. I've got some good news for the leader of the Labour Party. He was voted by Labour members as the most popular Labour leader since records began. I want him to know that those sentiments are warmly shared by many on this side of the House.
Jermey Corbyn.
Mr. Speaker, the Labour Party will never abandon the poor of this country. Levels of child poverty are a national scandal. The Prime Minister seems unable, incapable or unwilling to answer that question. Universal credit had 3 aims. It was meant to make work pay. Low-paid workers are not allowed to even keep their bonuses. It was meant to be simple, but has created mind-numbing complexity. It was meant to reduce poverty. It's driving people to food banks. As we've seen today, the Prime Minister isn't able to answer questions on it. The fact is, this government has baked in austerity for tens of millions of people. When will he finally accept that the universal credit system is broken, is damaging, is dangerous to people's living standards, and it should go?
Prime Minister.
That must look good in the
Mr. Speaker, the right honourable gentleman wants to do nothing else except keep people in the welfare trap. Stop helping people out of welfare and into work, and I think actually he should pay tribute to all the people who by their hard work have found fantastic jobs over the last year, and he should pay tribute to the growth in employment in the UK economy. And quite frankly, Mr. Speaker, it is this government that is getting on with delivering on the priorities of the British people. 40 new hospitals, 50,000 more nurses, 20,000 more police officers, Mr. Speaker, and all the Labour Party is still split from top to toe, Mr. Speaker, about whether to stay in the EU or to remain run by the EU. They still can't make up their mind. He still can't make up his mind. We deliver on the people's priorities.
Mr. Speaker, can I welcome